what's left is an extreme, hard-to-get nature. It's from deep offshore wells. It's from the Arctic and other environmentally precarious areas. It's from challenging geological formations. This is another image of hydraulic fracturing. That thing over there, that's the Empire State Building, to give you an idea of how demanding and challenging it is to extract from these underground formations. From politically hostile environments, that is countries that are corrupt, where there's no rule of law, where your investments are likely to be stolen from you, like in Russia and Kazakhstan, or from war zones and pariah states. So this is what's left of the world's energy. And I believe we will not see the increase in the world supply of energy that the Department of Energy and the International Energy Agency says is needed to meet global demand in the years ahead. There will not be enough new energy because the costs and the risks and the dangers of producing all of this will continually frustrate, put obstacles in the way of satisfying the world's need. So we have to assume, we have to anticipate that the global supply of energy will be inadequate from now on. And we're seeing that, of course, in the rising cost of energy. We're seeing that in the increasing environmental costs and hazards of energy and the growing political complications of getting energy. That's the backdrop for everything. And that is the new normal. It will only get more severe. It won't get better. That's my backdrop. So what about oil? America is, of all the major powers, is in the worst shape of all countries to deal with the extreme energy era because we rely more than any other country in the world on oil as our major source of energy. It's about 38% now. By 2035, it's going to drop a little bit to 36%. But you can see that we are expected to remain heavily reliant on oil, not to mention the other fossil fuels. This is a terrifying picture. I hope you're aware that this picture should scare you all shitless, because that means, you know, that sliver of renewables is not enough to avert global warming on a massive scale if this continues to be the case. Now we can hope that this prediction, which is a month old, 2 months old, will prove to be inaccurate. I hope it'll prove to be inaccurate. In fact, I think it will prove inaccurate because I don't think the energy industry is capable of delivering all of that oil and natural gas. But that is the projection from the Department of Energy as of early this year of where we'll get our energy in this country in 2035. Now, needless to say, oil has all kinds of advantages. It's the best fuel for moving things for transportation ever found. I'm not going to deny that. If you want to have your own private vehicle made of a couple of tons of steel around you and go 75 miles an hour wherever and whenever you want, there isn't any substitute really available on a large scale. If you want to fly across the continent all the time, there isn't another alternative available on a large scale. So oil has tremendous advantages, no getting around that. But it does have some drawbacks. It's a finite product that is going to disappear. And a lot of what's left of it is in countries that are very problematical, and their competition for what's left of that is going to be increasingly fierce. So this competition for diminishing material in countries that are inherently unstable, in my mind, is a recipe for war. Also, oil is a very valuable commodity, so in those countries that produce it, it's the main source of wealth countries, Nigeria, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, the Middle Eastern countries, and it tends to lead to authoritarian, criminal types of regimes that want to perpetuate their existence and control over oil. We call this a resource curse. So as long as we remain reliant on oil, this is the reality that we are going to face. All right, now where do we get our oil from? This is the question that every American is going to have to, this is our policy dilemma. As American citizens, we're going to have to wrestle with this question so long as we remain reliant on oil for the indefinite future. Where do we get our oil from? Right now, we get about 4.5 million barrels a day. Oil is measured in million barrels a day. Sort of an archaic way of measuring things. Goes back to the days when oil was discovered in Pennsylvania, and they shipped it in wooden casks they used for booze, for apple cider and beer and stuff like that. So it was a barrel, 42 gallons, and millions of barrels a day is how oil is measured. So we use in this country about 20 million barrels per day, and about 4.5 of those come from domestic oil. This is less than half of what we produced in 1970. So there's been a real sharp drop in our domestic production. We import about 11 million barrels a day. We get about 1.75 million barrels a day from natural gas liquids. So in the production of natural gas, some of that condenses into a liquid and it can be refined into petroleum. Some small amount from renewables, biofuels, and refinery gain, and so on. You could see that the Department of Energy believes that domestic crude production is actually going to increase, and that natural gas liquids will increase, and that biofuel production will increase quite a bit, allowing for a reduction in imports. Some of you may have studied this. I'm kind of, well, you'll see. Prospects for increased crude supply. Most of the additional that the Department of Energy believes, that's that blue bar on the far left, most of that is expected to come from the deep water of the Gulf of Mexico. That's the only place in the USA right now that is showing future increase in crude oil production. Now, there is a lot of oil out there, and no doubt we'll see increased production there. No question about it, but I just can't imagine that it's going to increase the way it was before the Deepwater Horizon, when the government turned a blind eye to all of the infractions of environmental and safety laws. They're going to be much tougher. There'll be fewer permits issued. There'll be a much slower process. So I just don't think that the rate of increase in deep water production in the Gulf of Mexico will be as great. The only other place where they expect to find new crude oil is in Alaska and the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, and more importantly, in the waters off of Alaska, the Beaufort Sea and the Chukchi Sea. And this is just going to be a fight. And environmentalists and native peoples are going to fight tooth and nail to prevent it because of the very high risk of threat to endangered species, onshore and offshore species. So there probably will be some wells in the end, at the end of all those wars, probably some wells will be dug. But I question whether the increases that the Department of Energy predicts for crude oil will actually be made. But we can have a discussion about that, how optimistic you feel. So where are we going to get our imported oil from? you can see that there has been a rather